am. So now we'll get to the story. Miss Lizzy, A Journey Through Time. There we are. For Diane Farrow, my North Star. My name is Miss Lizzy. I am a Model T Ford Roadster Pickup, almost 100 years old, built in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. I've had an eventful life of hard work, hibernation for over 35 years, then rebirth and exciting, enjoyable times. I'm still running today. You can see it outside. Sit back in a comfortable pew, and I will tell you my story. I only have 3 keepsakes from my early life. A photo of me coming off the production. Yes. Okay. Thank you. I got to keep my head back and put the book forward. I only have 3 keepsakes from my early life. A photo of me coming off the production line in the Windsor car plant, where I was one of many cars produced every 4 minutes. A brochure of a Roadster pickup in 1926 with the price of $381. And a Ford service manual and a special toolkit that allowed my owners to fix most problems. That manual would become very helpful later in my life. I was bought by Farmer Angus, who brought me to his farm to replace his horse and buggy. When I arrived, all shiny black, everyone seemed happy to meet me. The geese, the chickens, and even the horse. I was ready to show off my driving skills. But that did not happen. The first day in the spring, I was put to hard labor. I spent long hours in the back 40 pulling out tree stumps to make another grain field. Then I would pull the plows to prepare the field for seeding. In the summer, I was hauling hay to the barn to feed the cows during the winter and straw for them to sleep on. Also, I brought the grain to put in the granary to feed the chickens and geese in the winter as well. When I wasn't working in the fields, I would drive the family into town to do the shopping. Even on Sunday, I would drive the family to church and to visit friends. I had no day of rest. In the fall, when the crops were harvested, I was off to the market and with all the vegetables and fruits. I was covered in mud and dirt, and I was exhausted. Then life was to change drastically. The first change was the arrival, of the John Deere tractor. He was a brute of a machine with big rear wheels and a scary, growly engine that frightened the farm birds. He replaced me in the fields because he could pull 10 times the load I could pull. Next came Miss Tudor's sedan, a family car with a heater for winter and roll-down windows to let the summer breezes into the car, and a large back seat for the children. She lived in a warm garage next to the house. She got to drive into town for shopping, visiting friends, or going to church. She didn't do any work on the farm. Then I was moved into the back corner of the barn after 15 years of hard work and dedication. At first, I thought I was getting a much-needed rest. But then, my life fluids were removed. The water drained from my radiator, the oil drained from my engine, and the fuel drained from my gas tank. My eyes closed, tires went flat, seats eaten by mice, and the top eaten away by moss. Small parts disappeared. Lifeless, I was left to rust and fall apart. Looking back, I was in hibernation for over 35 years, forgotten and alone. Then one day, I sensed movement. I was moved onto a trailer with all the parts that had fallen off me over time. My truck box, my roof frame, my seats. I was a real mess. I thought I was being sent to the wrecker, where I'd be melted down for scrap metal. But I was pleasantly surprised. My new owner, Mr. Mark, took me home to a new warm garage. There, using the instructions in my Ford service manual, he took me apart piece by piece. He sandblasted the rusted parts, cleaned others, and replaced broken and worn parts. Then he repainted every part of me. He bought me new white wall tires, replaced my roof and seat with new material. Then he filled my radiator with water, my engine with oil, and put fuel in my gas tank. Then he cranked my engine. At first I coughed and sputtered and backfired, bang! But with the gentle handling by Mr. Mark, my engine began to run rather well. Without my box and top, we drove around the block. What a wonderful feeling after 35 years in hibernation. I was alive again, pure joy and happiness. Then I thought I'd be put back to work. But Mr. Mark didn't put me to work in the fields or delivering produce. I only went driving, mostly on the weekends. Sometimes I went on tours with other antique Model T Ford cars. Some were as old as 1909. Everyone who saw us thought we were special. I toured the back roads of Ontario, visiting antique shops and ice cream parlors. I got to meet many antique cars and their owners and children. I made a lot of new friends, but that was not all. I attended many parades, including Santa Claus parades at Christmas. Sometimes I rode on the back of a truck decked out in a red bow, with a large wind-up key, as if I was a toy truck, with many large wooden blocks for the children to see. Another time, I was decorated as a teddy bear express, with many teddy bears riding along with me. These were enjoyable times. Mr. Mark was so proud of me, he entered me in competitions sponsored by the Model T Ford Club and the Antique Auto Club of Canada. I was polished and cleaned and tuned up so well, I was running as quiet as a sewing machine. I won many trophies, ribbons, and cups. I was very proud of myself, and so was Mr. Mark. We had a lot of fun. Then I had a big surprise in 2019. The Model T Ford Club International yearly convention and tour was to be on Prince Edward Island, Canada. It was a meeting of over 100 Model T cars from all over North America. Some even came from Europe. I had to get ready because I would be judged with the best car in my class in the world. I was tuned up, cleaned up, waxed, and polished. Then Mr. Mark loaded me into a brand new trailer for the trip to PEI. The weather was warm and sunny when we arrived. First, we signed in, found our place to stay, then met more Model Ts than I thought existed. On day one of the tour, I drove through the back roads of PEI, visiting Anne of Green Gables and other popular island sites. On the second day, the tour took us on a narrow road through the woods and farmland. It was a sunny day with a cool ocean breeze, many birds singing. I had never felt better in my life. Pure joy, when all of a sudden, crash, bang, rip. I was flying through the air. Everything in the truck box was flying past me. Bottles, gas cans, tools, picnic baskets, everything in the truck box. My box crashed through the cab. My rear fender and wheel were smashed. I thought this was the end. Turns out Miss Chevy was driving too fast for this little road. She had sped over a hill, lost control, and smashed into me as she slid under my truck box, sending me flying like a pinball. She smashed the radiator, smashed her engine, and ripped off her hood. A major disaster. We needed help, so the other cars called the rescue vehicles. The road was blocked with all the antique cars. I remember the rescue vehicles racing across the field with lights flashing and sirens screaming. First, the old fire chief skidded to a stop beside me. Next came Sergeant Cruiser, followed by nurse ambulance, and finally, Joe the tow truck. Luckily, there was no fire. I was in a lot of pain, but I didn't lose any body fluids, my water, oil, and gas. No damage to my engine or drivetrain, yet I could not move on my own. Miss Chevy was knocked out cold. You can see that in her eyes. Water and steam were blowing up from her crushed radiator. Oil leaked all over the road from her broken engine. She had lost most of her body fluids, so she was not moving. She would need a lot of surgery to recover. Matter of fact, I think she was a write-off. That was the end of my trip to the PEI International Tour. Joe, the tow truck, loaded me carefully back on my trailer. Inside, I was gently tied down and prepared for my journey home. No judging with the best cars in my class, just broken and not knowing what was to become of me. What started out as the best day of my life ended in pain and defeat. Pardon me. Instead of being taken home, I was dropped off at Fawcett Motor Carriage Company. all by myself, alone. What was to happen to me? Would they take me apart and use my good parts to fix other antique cars? I was afraid and alone again. They moved me into the garage and removed just about all my body parts, my cab, truck box, fenders, running board, seat, as well as all my small parts. I was weeping when 3 friends arrived to console me. Madame Cadillac, Lord Sibbert, and Grandpa T. They were staying at Fawcett's too, and decided to befriend me to help me in the new situation I was in. Madame Cadillac told me not to fret. She had arrived here in baskets, all apart, and look at her now. Beautiful. Lord Sibbert was an immigrant from England. They had to source his parts from Europe with no problems. He too was running strong now. And Grandpa T said, "Don't worry, I've been coming to Fawcett's for almost a century." He was in 1909. I've been coming to Fawcett's for almost a century with 3 generations of Fawcett's working on me. Mr. Peter knows how to fix Model Ts. You'll be fixed up as good as new. It was springtime the following year when I finally drove out of the Fawcett garage. I was happy, perky, and ready to go. What a beautiful day. But I had to wait for Mr. Mark and Big Red to pick me up and take me home. My 3 new friends were outside to see me off. They told me that I'd be treated well and would be fixed up as good as new. And they were right. I thanked them for their support. Madame Cadillac told me she was off to a car museum where she would be treated in the style that she was accustomed to. Lord Sibbert was taking the train across Canada, Victoria, British Columbia, where several of his relatives lived. And Grandpa T lived locally, so I would get to meet him regularly at tours and meets. He stayed a close friend and became my mentor. Finally, I arrived home about a year after the accident. I thanked Big Red and his trailer for bringing me home. It was a glorious spring morning. Colonel Sam was all shined up, top down, sparkling in the sunlight to welcome me home. Mr. Zed, the youngster of the family, flashed his lights to welcome me home too. I reminded him to be careful because of his powerful engine. Drive carefully, especially on those narrow country roads. It was a happy reunion. I was full of joy to be back home with my family. Oops. Thank you for listening to my story. But I know we all have stories to tell. So if you see me driving in the country, sitting in the park, at a farmer's market, or at an ice cream parlor, or outside to the front of Knox Church, come up and talk to me. I would love to hear your story. I'm sure to be driving for many years to come. I am off for a drive into the sunset with the next generation owner, Mr. Adam. Hi, Adam. Until we meet again, ride and drive safely. Cheers, Miss Lizzy. Thank you, thank you. And if you want to get a copy of the book, for a donation of $30 to Knox Presbyterian Church in the hall, I'll give you a signed book. And if it's for somebody, Miss Lizzy will write a little story on the front. So, enjoy.